All right, what's going on, guys? Back with another JT's mixtape. Excited. We got plenty of good videos. Once again, I got my co-host Bryan Demon Racers with me, and yeah, we're about to get into some videos. What's going on, Bryan?
Nothing much. I'm excited to see it. It was fun seeing you in Vegas over the weekend or week, I think.
Yeah, right. So
cool.
so I'm back from Nevada and also Utah, and it was cool that Bryan actually I get to see him at the end of the week. It's funny, I just so happened to like book a room at the Palms, and they had some kind of film festival. So like I was like, Bryan, you need to get down here. We need to talk to some of these film execs about Ancient Angels. And we did a little bit. So hopefully we'll have some details coming up about that. But yeah, we had some interesting conversations there. And also I told people that I was going out to Vegas and I was going to the Valley of Fire. I was going to Zion and some of these other places in Utah. And actually I had somebody who watches the podcast named Morgan and his wife Linda. They reached out and so we hung out. We went to I saw them at the Valley of Fire, and we also hiked Zion together. So shout out to you guys. Great brother and sister in Christ. They're in Utah, or not Utah, but they were in Idaho. They drove a long way to hike with your boy here, and I thought that was pretty cool. They were awesome.
That's so awesome. And you know what? And I think also if people want us to do like a meetup thing, I think we should we're thinking about planning one. So if you guys want us to do that, we might do some kind of meetup event thing. Maybe like people should like comment where we should do it at. Because I'm in California, so you're on the other side. So
yeah, I was thinking. I mean, of course, if we did an East Coast thing versus a West Coast thing, but of course, I think that I know that for me it was easy to fly into Las Vegas, and obviously there's plenty of places to stay, and then you have 45 minutes from there you have the Valley of Fire. I think that I was commenting to the wife about how there's all these hiking destinations that some places you really have to earn it. So it's kind of like I compared it to like a seafood dinner. So like when you go to like Zion, I mean, it's beautiful everywhere, but you have to really hike really far to get to the thing you're going to see. And there's lots of places, like especially in the East Coast, you have to hike real far to get to the top, and you can't see anything until you get to the top. So I said those were more like getting blue crabs, and you're really working. You have to break out all the stuff, and you're getting all the meat out of there. But when you go to the Valley of Fire, that's like the lump crab meat. You go right in there. As soon as you're there, you're seeing every wild, crazy thing. And obviously, and then there's more there. I think that would be fun if we could do a meetup one day. We go we could stay. Maybe we could rent out a meeting room in one of these places, and then we could do like a president or something like that, a meet and greet,
a tour hike or something.
And then awesome. maybe do something like that and do something. I would love to do that if people would be down.
If people want to do it, comment like, Nevada or something, or Vegas in the comment sections. We see enough. Maybe we'll plan an event.
Yeah, I would love to. Without further ado, though, let's get into some videos. I've saved a few here, and I've got some fun ones here. Should we go right to the short season stuff right away?
Sure. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I got a couple Bible verses, and of course, this being JT's mixtape, it's going to be more than just videos. It's just kind of like I feel like it's kind of more like it's a variety show. So we can do short season stuff, and we can show other videos too. So obviously, we can do anything we want. It's our show. But here, let me share this.
I have been forced to rethink the book of Revelation. I want to read just a couple of places in Revelation. Verse 1:3. Blessed is he who reads, those who hear these words of prophecy and heed them, which are written, for the time is near. Verse 11. It's where it's going to say, I've written this book and send it to the 7 churches, which meant this letter of Revelation was not written for future generations. It was written to the 7 churches in that generation. Now, this is not only that, but in verse 7 it says, behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, and those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. Even so, amen. The word coming in the Old Testament is used over and over for God coming into his creation, either for blessing or judgment. A good one would be Isaiah 19:1, where God comes against Egypt but with a foreign army. God's coming is often characterized as him using foreign nations to judge his people because of their unfaithfulness. Do you mean the coming of Jesus in the clouds of heaven may be a cryptic way of referring to God using the Roman army to defeat apostate Judaism? Judgment on those who pierced him. That's not the Romans, friends. That's the Jews. See, in your mind, if you're a dispensationalist, I'm already a heretic. Because you think the New Testament's about Israel, and I assure you the New Testament's about Jesus. And people say, well, the modern state of Israel shows fulfilled prophecy. You show me a prophecy in the Old Testament where a secular, unbelieving, unrepentant, unresponsive Judaism is the inheritor of the promises. Israel's a great ally. I have no problem with it being an ally in democracy. But when you say they are fulfilled prophecy, what do you base that on? Neither Jesus nor any apostle ever once restated a national promise to Israel. Check me out. Never once a national promise. Because he fulfilled the law, you know, I'm in Matthew 5:17 through 19. He fulfilled the law, and the law has passed. Have you read the book of Hebrews lately? Have you read of the Acts 15 Jerusalem Council? The Mosaic covenant has been brought to an end, particularly in the destruction of the temple in AD 7. Judaism today cannot do the Mosaic covenant. There is no place for sacrifice.
Was he spitting fire over there, Bryan?
Oh, straight truth right there. I mean, I don't know how many people can handle that, but I love it that it says the time is near. And you know what? I think it's funny that he even put to the point that, like, could it be prophecy like the cloud and the coming in the clouds? Could it have meant in relation to the Roman army, right?
Mm-hmm.
The funny part is that's more than just the Roman army. Like, sure, you could say it's the Roman army, but Jesus actually came on the clouds. like it was like written. Like, but Josephus wrote about it, and other historians wrote about an event, a worldwide event where everyone saw suits of armor and people coming on the clouds. Yeah, but for those that think that that's too supernatural, sure, let's just say it was the Roman army. Either way, judgment came.
Yeah, 100%. I think what's fascinating about that clip, and I reached out to him. Of course, I DM'd him on TikTok, and I don't know if that's the guy who runs their TikTok account. It's probably not. But I mean, just look at that. I mean, like, obviously, just the optics of that. This guy who looks like, I'm just guessing because I don't really know him. He looks like he's been a pastor for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's getting up in front of his congregation and he's saying, I've had to rethink the book of Revelation. I mean,
love it.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think that, to me, it's kind of like the some of the journeys that I'm sure Bryan and I have both went through, and a lot of our friends, where it's humbling to say, maybe I've gotten this all wrong, you know? And so to do it on the stage that he's doing it on, of, you know, having a flock that it's like people are looking up to you and you're listening to you preach this. I mean, can you imagine how many times he probably preached sermons that would have been the opposite of this? And then he had to say, I had to get up and I have to acknowledge that I've been wrong.
Bro, you had to be super humble.
You have to, you know, I believe that God lifts up the humble, you know, he lowers the prideful. And obviously, you know, we go back to, like, when Paul said that you have to, like, be willing to become a fool so you can become wise. You know, it's admitting that you don't know it all, and then God can teach you. But yeah, because obviously the second you say you know it all, well, obviously that's the last day you're going to learn anything.
Well, there's a famous sort of perspective. My friend, he's a philosopher professor, and he taught me this understanding. He said, there is a difference between truth seekers and faith defenders. And he says, that's the biggest problem you see in the world. Belief defenders. It's like, there's people that want to defend what they believe. So all their narrative is bent towards this ideology. And then there's people that want to find truth. So you're either a truth seeker or a belief defender. And it doesn't mean your belief is right. It doesn't mean your belief is
right.
good.
Right. You could be wrong.
Yeah, you could be totally wrong in your belief. You're just a defender of your belief. You're not actually seeking real truth. And that's unfortunately what a lot of churches and a lot of Christians in this today's age have fallen into the category of a belief defender. You're not seeking the truth. Because if you were, and you actually read it, and you actually looked up the history like we've been doing, like, you'll realize there's a whole lot of unanswered questions that make a whole lot more sense when you don't subscribe to the narrative that every church person has. And it's like everybody just subscribes to this concept of pride. And it's like they take pride in this ideology that they match the narrative that all the other Christians believe. Do some research, read on your own. Like, Jesus was a rebel. Be a rebel, bro. Like straight up.
So what's interesting is how he mentions in this that video that he's basically saying, like, this is about the Jews being judged. That's the truth. That's the truth. Obviously, it's like, again, you think about like all the parables about how God sends his prophets, they kill the prophets, then he sends his son, they kill his son. What happens? Obviously, judgment comes. So this is interesting here. So again, this is like, I'm reading through the Bible again, and not to brag, but I'm almost done. I'm almost done this year again. I'm into First Peter, and I noticed something once again. Obviously, I'm picking up more things as I read through. And First Thessalonians 2, and this is starting with verse 14. Now check this out. This is pretty amazing. I'm kind of floored. I was kind of floored when I read this. For you, brothers, become imitators of the churches of God in Christ Jesus that are in Judea. For you suffered the same things for your own countrymen as they did for the Jews, who killed both the Lord Jesus and the prophets and drove them out, and displeased God and opposed all mankind by hindering us from speaking to the Gentiles that they might be saved, so as always to fill up their measure of their sins. But wrath has come upon them at last.
There right now, bro.
So he's saying, like, so this is in the time where Paul is writing letters to the Thessalonians, and he's saying that wrath has come upon them at last. So in present day, he's talking about wrath being poured out on them. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it's like, in Paul's mind, of course, I have to do a little more research about this. I'm not sure exactly when he wrote that first letter to the Thessalonians, but I know that some of these are getting toward the end of his ministry. So this might have been in the 60s. So is it possible this is the beginning of the rebellion in the Jewish Roman War starting out? Maybe not the quite full rebellion,
absolutely.
but obviously
totally
he's talking about that wrath is coming upon the Jews who did all those things.
They totally.
So what does that mean? That's pretty wild. I mean, it's kind of like that again. If you read the New Testament, you read the letters, you can very clearly see that the apostles are talking about the tribulation and the return of Jesus as being imminent. So imminent, in fact,
Your
that
brother in tribulation.
Yeah, that Paul is saying that wrath is on them right now. Like it was starting.
He says, "I'm your brother in tribulation," meaning he's going through it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So John
like,
John says that, and I think that again, if Revelation was written like 65 A.D., not 95, somewhere in the mid 60s. Yeah, we're talking about these are the times of Nero. This is the times where all this bad stuff is happening right then. So what if that's what's happening right then?
So very obvious to me, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like you could be a heretic, JT. I mean, gosh, look at all this rhetoric you're spewing about the Bible.
Well, like I said, that guy, if I'm in the company is that old preacher guy, I'm okay with that. I'm good. I'm good with that.
Me too.
I'm
good
with that. Okay, I've got another video, and this is gonna go along with that. Not quite as scriptural, but this is an interesting video.
There is so much of our past hidden under what we think are just piles of rocks. But upon closer inspection, they are anything but. Signs of the many resets of our realm are not to just be found in the many layers of dried mud beneath us. As we look at some of these magnificent structures from ancient civilizations long past that are said to be carved from hammer and chisel, you can see a clear melting type destruction pattern on these buildings. Think Archimedes' mirror, or perhaps a plasma storm-like event that left its trace realm-wide. Look at the Black Pyramid of Egypt. It is clear one of those great pyramids of Egypt exposed to one of these events, leaving the top melted and blackened and deformed. I think there are many pyramids like this Black Pyramid still to be found all across the world. Many think these are the results of a man-made event, like an ancient nuclear war. Others, like myself, I believe this was a plasma storm, part of a repeating cycle like the mud flood. Whatever the cause, it definitely left its mark the world over. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's pretty good.
what's cool is on the end of that, and I'm going to read this verse, and then we can talk about the video a little bit. So at the very end of that the video, you could see Cappadocia, Turkey, and we've talked about Cappadocia, Turkey a lot. We talked about it in the very first short season podcast with Alpha Talks. Obviously, that's one of the best examples. And what I didn't realize until today, literally today, I read this, and so I had to talk about this. Okay, so this is 1 Peter 1. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who are the elect exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia.
Bithynia.
Bithynia? I butchered that. But obviously, he mentions specifically Cappadocia, Turkey. How about that? And then so obviously then you see the very clearly in that place. Like I said, that's probably the best example where you can see these. Obviously, there were once buildings.
Looking.
They were not just mountains. They didn't just carve into those mountains. Those things are legitimately. Let's see. Let me just pull that up so we can have.
They look like
reference.
melted for sure stones that were like solid stones that have been melted into these structures with like warped doorways and warped kind of wavy architecture. And it's kind of like, did they build that like that? Did they build it wavy like that or melty like that? Or were these once buildings at one point that melted down to that extent?
Yeah, I think to me it's so clear that those things were once structures, and now they're just melted and deformed.
Dude,
and I mean, yeah. So obviously, we talk about the day of the Lord. There's fervent heat. You know, it seems like Peter obviously later describes in 2 Peter that there was a time where obviously God stored up water above the firmament to flood the earth, but this time it's fire. And yeah, there's many examples of this. And yeah, that kind of weird stuff in Cappadocia. Yeah, I mean, isn't it pretty wild? Obviously, look at that big thing at the top of that mountain.
Looks like it could have been a castle or something.
Yeah, it must have been a really big structure at the top. And yeah, it's how about the fact that the Bible actually mentions this place?
Yeah.
And now look at it.
Very fascinating. Looks pretty melty. Like weird little cubby holes at the top. It's like, why would they make these cutouts in these cubby holes if they were not like part of something?
Yeah, it seems like to me likely that the outside got melted, but obviously it was hollow enough in the inside where they probably what they probably did was obviously carved out the openings a little better.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like the openings could be a bigger holes, and maybe the whole thing would have been like a hole. Maybe it was bricks. Maybe there were cavities, and it was like it just collapsed in on itself and then hardened into stone. Like it was probably just some kind of like brick structure that was hollow all the way through or something.
So now, now I'm going to share some stuff I saw in the Valley of Fire, which we were pumping up a second ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Does that not look melted to you, Bryan?
Yeah, it does look pretty melty, especially the way it like drips on the bottom there.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that. Now, so I would say that the Valley of Fire, obviously, there's examples that look a lot like Cappadocia, Turkey. But what I would say is like that the possibility is that maybe this experienced way more destruction than that did. And so there was a partial preservation in Cappadocia where it could be salvageable. But the Valley of Fire is obviously just wrecked beyond recognition. Yeah, look at that. I mean, does that not look like Cappadocia right there?
Yeah, similar. Yeah,
maybe like it's a little bit worse, but
I mean, if it that looks melty right there for sure. You know, if it's a you know, the reality is like we don't know what it was, but it definitely seems like it could be melted, especially the color differentiating thing that happens when you boil stuff at certain points. It like separates and stuff, or when it's like
Yeah,
melting.
yeah. I mean, that's why I said it looks like a candle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Check it out. It's supposedly lava, but what if it's just melted things? So we're here in Snow Canyon where there's no snow, but there's lots of melted stuff and even more looking destroyed things. Y'all, check it out. This was supposedly done by a volcano, but I don't know. I just don't know. There's a cave down there. You're really not getting the full experience of this because this is really deep. Ooh. Check it out. Meanwhile, you have like melted stuff over here. All that being said is that's the kind of things you see all around the Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, probably California. Did I say Arizona? Yeah, all those places have examples of places like that, and it's just like it's a wasteland. But yeah, any thoughts, Bryan, about the meltology?
You know, I've studied a bit of geography and stuff, and so I've looked into rocks and rock formations and such, and I kind of collected rocks when I was a kid, and I was all into it. So I've seen like areas where after lava rock comes out, like what it looks like and how it looks all blackened and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, but you know, we who's to know what it looks like over time? So time can adjust the way something looks. Like Mount Sinai, by the way, there's a mountain over in Israel area where the
Oh,
Lord
I
spoke
think that's
to.
in Saudi Arabia, where some
Yeah,
people theorize is the real Mount Sinai, not the one that they say
yeah,
is
yeah, and
Mount
it's
Sinai.
yep, and it's black. It's like blackened and it's burnt. And so
Mm-hmm.
you see evidence of the burn because if you dig underneath it, it's not black. So it's like been black, it's been made black, you know? And so
Right.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
just this one mountain peak is just blackened. And you're like, okay, well, it says in the Bible that God spoke through the mountain, like flame basically was the idea that the mountain was covered in fire. And so you know, like seeing these kind of things, like we can't really necessarily we can kind of determine that some things happen from some natural event, like we know what lava rock looks like, but we also don't know what lava rock looks like in, you know, 100 years from now, you know, or
Right. Well,
200
I
years
mean,
from now,
even if
or
I remember there was a
molten
sign
rock.
on there that said that they were theorizing. Well, they didn't say, of course, they didn't say theorizing. They said this was from a volcanic eruption 27,000 years ago.
Yeah, so we don't, I mean, that's still melted rock. So it's just like we don't really know what it looks like afterwards. We don't know if like there's an outside crust and then it breaks off and then it starts like, you know, eventually like having, if it has so much iron in it, it will start turning red or whatever. You know, like there's multiple scenarios of things that we just don't quite comprehend. So you can't really say this or that. You can't really say what it is. Like we don't know what it is.
Well, right, but interesting too that I know my friend Ceiling Fan Man. He did a video about basically volcanoes as they're shown on movies and stuff are not actually how they work. Like if you go to Hawaii, there's lava tubes, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
natural process. It's not like cone-shaped mountains that are ejecting lava straight up into the air. That's more like a movie thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the guy made a compelling case when he had a guest on talking about that. That being said, okay, so lava is real. Obviously, again, you go to Hawaii and you go see it. If God wanted to shoot molten rock into the air by natural means. It's kind of like that. If God sent, God could do anything he wants to do. If God wanted to strike something with lightning, we'd be like, well, that's a natural occurrence. It was just a coincidence that guy cursed God right before he got struck by lightning. The point is, like, God obviously could use any kind of means he wants. And so if he did use some kind of natural process to melt someplace, well, I mean, that's God's choice, right? Like, I mean,
God's judgment.
He can kind of control all these things. That's kind of what it says in the book of Job, that God has all these natural processes and he uses them when he wants to.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, I guess that it does not preclude the fact that this was judgment by God. Again, people always talk about Pompeii. And we're only told that Mount Vesuvius destroyed Pompeii. And it could have. Interestingly enough, the timing was, the historians say 79 AD. And so that's right within the window of when Jerusalem was being destroyed. So if God used a volcano or whatever to judge this wicked, depraved city, well, how is that different than any other way he could do it?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, next video, I'm going to do this. We're going to kind of stick on the kind of the short season theme here.
This is Marshalltown, Iowa, early 1900s, and I'm looking at this because it's right down the street from where my research is based on, Cedar Rapids. But I'm looking at this, and it looks the same as the rest of the cities in Iowa at that time, where you have brick roads, you have tracks laid for the trolleys, you have all the buildings all done, people standing around looking at this crazy contraption that this man's setting up with wonder because they have no idea what he's doing. I really thought in this picture that they were trying to hide the courthouse behind all those trees, but the really interesting thing is this clock right here on this bank. I've been staring at it. I can't figure it out. I don't know why it goes to 16. I've never seen any clock ever go to 16. It doesn't make sense. I can't find anything online about a 16-hour clock. But the weird thing is, like, it works. If we have a 16-hour day, that's a clock that runs at 50% of a 24-hour day. For some reason, they go around and they both line up and they both equal one day. Or if it's a 32-hour day, if it's 16 and goes around twice, it works as well. One day, 24 hours, if you do like 75%, that day, that 32-hour day lines up with a 24-hour day. I don't know. I've been able to find this website with a converter clock, as if someone just all the time might want to know what time of the day is on a 32-hour clock. It doesn't make any sense. I can't find anything online. I don't know. You go back in time and there's no like records of anyone using a 16-hour day, but here it is on this bank. You look at this postcard, it's postmarked 1910, but they obviously knew not to include a 16-hour clock on the postcard. Obviously they made the facade look really nice, but here we are again. Just another weird find from that time.
What do you think about that, Bryan? Have you ever heard of a 16-hour clock or a 32-hour day or anything like that?
Surprisingly, in all of the research I've done, I've not come across that. So I don't know what to think. I gotta process this and kind of evaluate what it could mean. I mean, potentially, like, I don't know if it would really affect too many things, because we make hours what hours are, regardless. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it would reflect anything really, but I mean, like, eventually the whole world had to subscribe to this sensation of time that we all agreed upon eventually. So it wouldn't it wouldn't blow my mind to be like, oh yeah, there could have been some with a 32-hour day. There could be some with a 10-hour day, and like, we don't really, like, it was a subsequent method of time that we all kind of agreed when we went to the 24-hour. I haven't looked into it though, so I don't know. What, have you looked into it?
No, not more than just looking at the comments. I was trying to see if anybody had a good answer. Here's what the best answer was, or maybe not the best answer. This is the most liked answer, and I think obviously it means people found it the most credible. Somebody commented and said that because this was a bank, there was a time where bankers needed more exact hours, so they refined it more, and they broke the 16 hours into 4 quarters. Okay, so obviously the most logical response I heard was like, you could break 12 hours into 4 quarters pretty easily. Like they don't need 16 to be, and why would bankers need more exact hours? It really makes no sense to me at all. And I think the funny part is like, I was just thinking like biblically, or I was trying to rationalize it in one way. I thought, okay, so if you did have a 32-hour day, right? Then actually, no, I'm at a loss. I really don't know. I mean, maybe it's like I don't understand the advantage, because I was actually thinking like, if you're, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think is like biblically, and obviously in the times of the Bible, a day was the time the sun was out. Like that's why the Bible always says 40 days and 40 nights. Like the night and the day are different. The day is when the sun's out. And how do you know when the day's over? It's when the sun goes down. So day starts the next day. So it's kind of like, obviously we know our hours are arbitrary, especially obviously just during this time of year where we have daylight savings and all this weird stuff. It's funny how like states like Arizona, I believe, do not participate in daylight savings. So they have different times than even the people around them. It's kind of like that. I mean, how important? I guess it's more confusing to us if somebody was on a different time schedule. But if you lived in a town where you're a little more isolated, it's like, call it whatever time of day you want to. But like, if you're trying to watch Thursday night football, people are on like a different schedule. Like they'd be like, so what time is the game at?
Yeah.
Like because now we're using Eastern and Pacific and Mountain Time and Central. But yeah, if you're saying like, oh yeah, you have to use a 32-hour clock, and you're like, okay, so what's you have to have like a converter and everything. That's weird. Well, I guess the really interesting part about it is the fact that, again, these are old pictures. We're always looking at all these old world pictures, and we're like, that is really weird. So this is just put this in the category of that's really weird. But also, it's really sus that he showed that postcard of that same building, and the 16-hour clock is not included on that postcard.
That's very fascinating. I don't know what to think of it, to be completely honest, because it's like, I mean, the time is a relative thing. In fact, there's a guy who actually did a study to determine time, and he went into a cave underground, and then they started like mapping his behaviors, and on the phone he would count 1 to like 60 or 1 to 100 every day with a person, and they ended up finding that the guy switched from living on a 24-hour cycle to a 48-hour cycle. And when he counted the seconds from 1 to 100, it was like it took him twice the amount of time to count from 1 to 100. He like lost track of what a second was, and he started, without any light intervening on his biological clock, he started living life according to a 48-hour cycle, which I think is fascinating, because it was like he would stay awake for longer periods of time and then sleep for longer periods of time. And it's just like, it just goes to show that you're like, your biological clock can adjust accordingly to what your surroundings are. So who knows, like if the current time frame, if the Lord is like shortened the days or whatever at this point, like who knows what, like, like how things have shifted. And obviously the clock is relative to, it's still just a day, no matter what. If they put 16 hours on it, it's still just going to be a day regardless. But it's fascinating to think that like potentially, like there could be a change in all kinds of stuff that we just don't know. But I think what's more fascinating is that they deleted it, that they erased it. So that's the most fascinating component about that isn't the clock itself, but rather the fact that they're trying to manipulate it so you don't know that it exists. That should tell you something more about that.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I don't buy the whole argument that bankers did not need more exact time. Like a second is too short. Is that where is that what you, or no? A second is too long, so we have to increase it. So obviously, the seconds in your 32-hour day would be shorter.
So what do the bankers go outside and check their clock outside every day? Like, oh, let's walk outside and look.
Right. So people needed on the outside of the town needed to know what time it was inside the bank. Well, yeah, bank. It is kind of funny when people always talk about bankers' hours, but we always just say like, because it's like, they work a certain amount of time, and it's obviously they get off all the holidays that you and I don't get off, and but it is funny to think like bankers' hours would have been 32 hours. It'd be like, yeah, all the converter Right.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you though. That if you guys have any more knowledge of this, obviously hit us up in the comments. Let us know what this is supposed to mean. Otherwise, I will just chalk this up into weird hidden history.
Yeah. Very strange.
Okay, I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit.
You know that Uber has never turned a profit?
What?
Yeah.
That's
Isn't that
crazy.
fascinating? So why
They're
do
worth $1 trillion.
Right. So this is another thing in the book. The reason Uber is so big is because venture capitalists keep putting money into Uber, right? So it keeps growing. So the stock keeps rising, right? Now, why are they doing that? The reason they don't make money is because of drivers, and they have, there's all kinds of benefits and insurance. They're waiting. Investors are waiting for cars to become autonomous where they don't need a driver. So Uber's going to have like computer-driven cars. That might take 10 years, but then you get all your money back.
Who's gonna trust that?
They
Well-
posted a net loss of $9 billion.
How about that?
Oh my God.
This is going on all the time.
Look at this. In 2021, Uber posted a lower net loss of $496 million. Hey guys, good news. We only lost $496 primarily thanks to the business divestitures of various assets throughout its history. On an annual basis, Uber has never made a profit.
How about that?
Wow. That's so weird.
I would
weird?
imagine it's one of the most successful
too,
companies that
baller.
No.
everybody's Ubering.
And this is the problem with our business system and our marketplace, is because in a lot of ways it's fixed.
Oh, they had one profitable year in 2018.
Yeah.
Okay. But look at that. Go back to that. Over the next 3 years, it's lost $15.6 billion.
Would you ever have thought of that? No.
No.
Oh, but it cut its losses to $400 million in 2021.
So what the reason that
So
the
they made a
company
little
keeps
money.
growing is venture capitalists keep putting money into it. And if you keep putting money into it, you can expand its value.
And they're doing it because they believe in autonomous cars?
Yes.
Like,
Now
one day
here's
that'll gonna-
here's another thing. So why in New York City there are buildings, high-end buildings that they build, right? Like where the apartments go for $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, $50 million, right? They're 80% empty. Do you know why they're 80% empty? And why there's so much real estate in this country with high-end that's totally empty?
Tell us.
Because people from China, Russia, South America who are doing nefarious stuff, they'll buy an apartment, they'll buy a flat in London for $140 million. You go, what, $140 million? Who would ever live there? They don't live there. They don't rent it either, because then they can't call it as an asset.
investment.
Now what you do is this. You take that $140 million flat and you borrow against it. You borrow against it. So now you take that money and you put it in the stock market, and that's how you wash your money, baby. Whoa. Yes. So now in the
That's how
government,
you wash your money.
What do you think about that, Brian?
I mean, autonomous cars. I mean, it's already what they're trying to do here in California. They're like right now, the FedEx drivers all are being forced that a certain amount of their fleet has to be electric, and like by the next, like I think it's like next 2 years or something like that. And so like the FedEx cars here now and are all like these electric FedEx giant car. Have you seen them? Are they where you're at?
No.
No, yeah. So we have like these new FedEx car trucks that are all electric. And so they're trying to force electric cars onto society here in California, this is the playground, the test set ground, because then they can control where you go, how much you drive, like, oh, we don't want you to go into that state. Guess what? Your car turns off when you cross that line. Like there's so much more control over electric vehicles. There's so much more control over autonomous vehicles. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that's pretty crazy that Uber is being funded to being kept alive. I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't disagree with what you said about them wanting people to have electric cars and then they can limit our mobility. But I think about it like this is like, yeah, like what they were saying is like, this is nefarious because this is a rigged system, and I think the real scary part is like, so the people with the big money, and who can afford to lose that much money? You know what I'm saying? Like, you really think about who could afford to lose that much money. Lose $15 billion with one of their best years is them losing $400 million. And people are still, so who can afford to continue to invest in a company that's losing that much money? I'm saying, like, I understand it that, yeah, one day you're going to get it back. But I mean, like, how many billions have they lost? I mean, like, I'm saying, like, how long could nobody normal could lose anywhere close to those numbers. even if it was thousands. I mean, just
Yeah.
put thousands in front of that. That would be a ridiculous amount of money to lose. But these people are going to lose that much money in order to potentially collect on the back end of this. Now, here's the thing. Anybody who could lose that much money and survive are the people who are likely influencing all the policies that you get the
Oh, yeah.
green initiatives and the autonomous cars. And so these people are taking their money and they're willing to lose it all, but obviously they're not losing it without a guarantee that they're going to reap big. And not only that, they're going to be putting lots of people out of business when they do, because they're going to be the only ones who are going to be able to do certain things. And I think that's kind of like, so yeah, you could limit certain people's mobility, but more than anything, like if you have to have these certain kinds of trucks, like you're saying, that's most people will not be able to afford them.
That's the point. They want
Right. So they won't be able to afford those vehicles. They won't be able to afford to do business. They won't be able to afford to like ship things in California because normal people will not be able to afford the kind of vehicles.
They want to limit it so much so that that transportation and mobility is like such a valuable commodity that you stay in one place, and that the elites control mobility. The elites control everything, and they bring it to you, and you stay in your little prison cage, and you don't get to move. Like basically, we're all in jail cells. It's just our jail cells are a little too big for what they want. They want our jail cells to be real small now.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to tighten them down and take away your mobility, and that's like the number one thing that they want to remove.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but think. And so in the second half of that, he's mentioning that people are buying all these properties and they're borrowing against them. So this is something that I wish I'd have known a long time ago, and I never really understood it until, well, it's not that I ever had a lot of money to be able to play with like this, but what people say is the rich always keep their money moving. Some people would say like, oh, I want to pay my house off so then I can start putting money in the bank. Well, you see, when they print money, the money in your bank account goes down. It's legalized theft. They print money, and obviously your money's worth less. So those people do not put money in the bank. Those people buy investments, and then they borrow versus those investments, and they keep it in the stock market. And people are always saying like, the stock market always goes up. You know why? Because assets go up because our money becomes worth less and less.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're really doing. But what's interesting, he makes the point of saying they're buying these flats in London and New York and all this kind of stuff. Yes, that's true. But what they've also done, and a lot of people know, like kind of during the pandemic times, BlackRock bought a bunch of like houses and stuff. Like during all this, so now the housing crisis is insane because of limited resources, people or limited assets, and now obviously interest rates are really high. But I believe they did the same thing versus if these investment firms bought all these houses and then they borrow against the money, the assets they have, they put it back into the stock market. Yeah, they can do that. But here's the problem. If you're competing against companies like that to buy houses, well, we can't, it's not a fair fight. No. So then our real estate goes up. And now it's funny, like, like I live in a house, but we couldn't really move. It makes no sense to move with interest rates and all this other stuff. So that's what they've done is they've made, so like you were saying, they limit your mobility by saying you can't drive, but so far in a certain charge. But they've actually limited lots of our mobility by the fact that a lateral move, you go change from this house to this house, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg because a lot of people who are locked in at good interest rates, we can't afford to pay 7%. We can't afford to, so the people who are moving their money around, obviously are the people influencing policy. These are the people who are encouraging like the Fed to print more money. Those are the people who are robbing us blind. And it's obviously, this is a coordinated effort from very high places.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the world we live in, but hopefully Trump will fix that. I'm ready for this to go down.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I feel like that's the kind of stuff that I don't know what anybody can do about that. But I hope that I'm wrong here. We're going to shift gears to maybe not a more light subject, but it also involves some money and it involves the dirty movie business.
De Niro's building a $1 billion studio. How is that going to make money? What's the business plan? Is it over 30 years? That's my question.
De Niro's 81, isn't he? Like, what? How old is De Niro?
But that's what I'm saying. In the rating system of Hollywood, PG-13, rated R, which rating is the most profitable?
I would say PG.
Wrong. It's G. The children's films that are animated stories like Cinderella are the most profitable in all of Hollywood, and yet they're 30% of the production. So why would the system make 70% of something that doesn't make as much as the 30%? Why? Because it's spiritual. Because the devil runs Hollywood. And he wants that negative 70% to teach your kids all these other things. But the 30%, which makes the most money, is happiness and loving your mom and dad, and they make the most money. Why would Hollywood make less of the most profitable?
Sounds like witchcraft to me.
Well, it's interesting when he says that. Of course, I couldn't help but think after just watching that one video, it's like, what? How long is it going to take them to make their money back? What if that's what he's doing? It's like he builds a $1 billion thing and then he borrows against it. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't think that he's just going out of pocket to do it himself. So, I mean, I think that maybe that's possibly what they're doing. Maybe that's part of washing your money by investing in something that costs $1 billion. But that being said, yeah, it is pretty interesting that he comes out and says, I know Stephen Baldwin said things like this before, but that's pretty interesting that the G movies make the most money, but obviously they would rather put out filth. Now, the one thing I would disagree with him about, I don't think those G movies are just about loving your mom and dad and doing all these things, because we know that there's a lot more.
There's subtle manipulation going on.
There's subtle stuff. But obviously, yeah, the G movies are likely going to be less profane than anything above that. But I do think it's interesting.
Did you see the toy doll, the Wicked toys
that
they released with the
bro? You know
put that on there.
You know that I got this. So let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and share that right now. So that's
but the G movie, it is very much a spiritual thing, dude. It's very much a spiritual thing, and like they're clearly trying to pander towards the controlling our children.
Do not go on the website on the back of these Wicked dolls, because it may lead you to an adult entertainment website where you have to be 18 plus to even go on, and now the maker of these has to issue an apology. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how you make a mistake this big, so let's get right into it. So there's a new Wicked movie coming out, and it's featuring Ariana Grande and a lot of other big names, because I mean, it's one of the biggest plays in the world. And to hype it up, they released these dolls, and these dolls are catered to kids who are years 4 and up. And behind the box of the dolls, there's this website, and I'm not going to show you the name of the website because no one should be looking at this, but it should have been wickedmovie.com. And the company that made this was Mattel, and this is a company that made Barbie dolls and Hot Wheels, and they said they are now aware of the misprint, and they're urging them to throw away the packaging or just cut out the link. So as crazy as this sounds, please, if you have bought these dolls, throw away the packaging or just cut out.
Throw the whole doll away. Okay, how about that? Like, don't just throw away the packaging, guys. I'm gonna tell you right now, throw the whole doll away. Don't be buying dolls, okay? Like, it's called a doll for a reason. It's idol. It's an idol. It's teaching your children to worship things. That's why they're called dolls. Okay,
that's interesting. I never heard you say that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, bro, that's what they are. They're like, just so you understand, like, sexuality and humanity today in the world, like there's sexuality is what drives adults, right? Like, there's like one of the biggest driving factors, the thing that men fall to all the time. It's perversion and sexuality. It's like, but as a child, it's not sexuality. You know what it is? It's idolatry. That's what you're falling to. And then that's what these toys teach children to do. You idolize things. Dolls. It's an idol. They're telling you what it is. Like, they're literally teaching you at a young age to desire something and want something and have it. They're not teaching you to love. They're not teaching you to give. They're not teaching you to, like, suppress desire or control. They're teaching you to want. And that want eventually evolves. Okay, it evolves. Like spoiled little brats turn into sexual little deviants. Okay, that's literally what happens. And so it's because of dolls, idolatry, where you worship, you give worth to these little stupid dolls. Like this is what's going on. Like, and so that of course it's got this evil website on the back of the dolls. And like it really does. I saw it straight up. And
I
so
just
like
thought I was just getting my daughter a witch doll.
yeah, witch doll, right?
I didn't realize it was that bad. It's like, yeah, what do you think the chances are that this was an accident?
Dude, it says wicked on the box. Like, what do you think? What do you think, parents? As far as I'm concerned, boycott them. Don't buy a single one of those. Like, destroy that company needs to be destroyed for the wickedness that they're bringing into your society. They're telling you what it is. Like, people don't understand how like the occult works. Like, they tell you what they're doing. They are prophesying what they're doing over you. That's why it's called wicked. Of course, the wicked doll will have something evil and wicked as a porn website on the back of the box. They've already told you. You knew in your heart when it said wicked that you shouldn't have bought it. You knew in your heart. This is how you determine what sin is. You thought, oh, wicked, and something in you said, that's not good. Do you know, like, wicked comes from wayward, I believe. Isn't that wayward, or what was the original? I think is wicked's origin story.
I'm not actually sure about that.
Wicked has an origin story. It basically is not good. I forget the specifics on it. But either way, like they're telling you that it's evil. So whether you look into it and you think in your heart, oh, I'm just getting this doll. No, fool. Pay attention to the name. Something in you told you, don't look at that. Don't get that. Don't pay attention to that. That's what it is. So yeah, I would say throw the whole idol doll away. Throw the doll away. Throw the idol away. Throw it all away. Destroy the box. Destroy the thing. It's all wickedness.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though about, I really didn't know much about this. I actually did see, like, I was in the airport, as I was traveling. I saw I walked into there, and of course you're going into the gift shop and stuff, and I saw, selling books before you get on the plane. Lots of them were talking about that movie or that play, whatever it is coming out. And so Ariana Grande starring in it, who just recently came out professing to be a witch, not the character, like herself.
Do you believe in that? Like, is there something to when you're making music, just letting go to the universe and or wherever your brain will go? Chris Martin comes on a bunch of times and preaches about how the universe gave him Viva La Vida, and he just like opens himself up and it just beams from the fucking sky.
I love that.
But is there an in-between anywhere where like craft meets the universe?
Yeah. I'm somewhere in between. I've learned, I don't know. I sit somewhere between being a literal witch, I'm not kidding, and being like the most realistic, cut, dry, like,
Yeah, totally. Can you do a tarot card reading for me?
Oh my God, I wish I brought them.
Yeah, what is that? What are you just walking around set looking to do readings
every day? No, they come to me.
Oh, interesting.
They come to me.
You are a witch?
I am indeed. The witchiest witch.
And it's just like, obviously the normalization of witchcraft and things like that. And obviously, so it's not surprising that something like this happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's naive to believe that Mattel doesn't know how the World Wide Web works. That, hey, unless you get the address exactly right, it could be wrong. So like the idea that they would not get it perfectly. I mean, like, nope, there's no product control. Nobody checks the labels in the box.
I literally do product development. Okay. At those websites and all the things on the box get checked. They get checked like 10 times by different people. There's no way that got slipped through like by accident. Like, it's just, what it is. Like, they check it multiple times over.
You think that what I was thinking it could have been too, like that you could have, like, they could be double dipping here. Obviously, they're trying to pervert a generation of kids, and also they do something like that. Whoops! Now everybody's hearing about these dolls, right? Like that. Would anybody know about these dolls if like this one came out? And sometimes I could see that, believe it or not, these companies would look at any publicity as good publicity. And publicity for this movie that's coming out, this play, right? It could all be like, oh, well, that was really bad, but now everyone's talking about it. I kind of said the same thing about the Olympics when you have the mockery of the Last Supper and the crazy stuff that happens there, the the male boxer beating the women up and stuff. And it's like, I think that they probably do in this day and age where there's so much noise as far as like your divided attention. They say, hey, they're going to pay attention to this now, right?
Mm. It could be a marketing thing. Either way, that's still a form of manipulation and
Oh,
witchcraft.
definitely.
And like, just so you guys know, like Ariana Grande, she is part of the Diddy parties, y'all. Like, she has totally been abused and molested, and it's so obvious. Like, there's videos of her being like held like inappropriately, like squeezed, and you tell she's like one of those people that have been like completely manipulated and abused. Like, I would never praise this girl. I feel bad for her. Like, I feel so bad for that girl. Like, and the thing is, it's like, dude, and here we are worshiping the, idolization of this person and sexualization of this person. Like, and here it is projecting onto our society. It is so sad. It is so sad what they're doing to our children in our world today. Anyways, let's watch another video. That's disturbing though.
Yeah. Speaking of disturbing, this is not as much, but yeah, let's see.
I don't exist. So they're all characters that I've played, including Jim Carrey, including Joel Barish, including any of those things. They're all characters. Jim Carrey was a less intentional character, right, because I thought I was just building something that people would like, but it was a character. I played the guy that was free from concern so that people who watched me would be free from concern.
Wow. That is yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah, well, I was just saying, yeah, I would say that that's pretty creepy that he says that. I mean, I do believe that the most easy for people to grasp would say that, well, you could even say like that someone like me when I'm online, I'm not acting, but I'm obviously trying to, like, if you're what if you're sad?
Genuine.
Yeah, if you're trying to be sad, well, like if you're sad one day, it's like, if you're selling, like you think a guy like him, he's got a public face. And so he's typically out in public and he's selling movies and stuff like that. So if you're the funny guy, you can't be the sad guy. Yeah, right? Like, sure, nobody wants to see that. So
he's putting on his face all the time.
Well, I would always say, like, I remember when I used to make videos and like I would kind of try to get this shtick where I'd kind of try to be funny. And obviously I would try to put the bro humor on. And I remember some days I didn't really feel like doing that. And I wanted to make a video, but I'm like, I'm not really in the right mood to do it. And so like, maybe that's what he's saying. But obviously I think, to me, it sounds like he's saying like that, like literally he does not know who he is anymore because he's going out there and he's always acting. And I do find it interesting that a lot of people who are like famous comedians are really dark. Yeah. Like the funniest people are really the most demented in a lot of ways. And I think that like Jim Carrey specifically, he's done some really wicked stuff. Obviously he plays the movies like The Mask and stuff like that. And you think like, well, that's when he puts on the Loki mask. Interesting that that's what that is. And he becomes this different person. And yeah, so Bryan's obviously brought it before and I'll let you go. But yeah, like we talk about these actors channeling, playing, being amused to some kind of spirit. And yeah, like, so, yeah, what do you think, Bryan? Obviously, what do you think about them?
It's interesting, that clip. That's the most docile and most real I've ever seen a Jim Carrey clip of him ever. Like, he looked so broken as a person too. And it was fascinating for him to say that like Jim Carrey doesn't exist. That's because he doesn't exist. He's made himself a vessel for these spirits and these entities, these characters, to take over different parts of who he is. And like you have to be at a certain point in this acting world. This is why I say acting is evil and like movies are evil. And I try to describe this to you because these people are essentially embodying spirits. I think acting in general is like not good. I'm all down for documentaries, great, but acting is like you're lying, you're faking, you're pretending to be something you're not to convey a message. Like it just seems so disingenuous, and it's just like it just doesn't seem very good to me.
Well, what's interesting is that one spirit I know is of acting is Dionysus. Like that's where you get the masks like the theater masks.
Yep.
So that is interesting, and obviously that goes back to the Olympics thing where I said they're doing the Last Supper to honor Dionysus.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. I mean, but yeah, I do think that it's like, it's kind of like you play dangerous games, and I'm not as extreme on Bryan. I don't know that like you could do a Christian play, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but maybe it is a situation where that, you got to be operating out of the right heart condition when you're doing these kind of things, and it's like you're saying like if you're clearing yourself out and you're trying to be somebody else. I remember, I think it's in Fight Club. It was kind of like that. I remember Edward Norton was basically saying like, if you wake up in a different place and you try to be somebody else, would you be somebody else? And it's like and obviously in the movie, it's like he's literally possessed by the spirit of Tyler Durden or whatever, and it's like, but he's basically saying like that every day you like, if you tried to be somebody else, would you be somebody else? I kind of think that's what he's saying. Like if you it's like fake it till you make it. Like then all of a sudden, maybe that's a situation where these people really do not know what they're messing with, and then you end up like Jim Carrey right there. He really did seem like hollowed out. Like he seemed like, like
bro, he seems so empty.
Yeah, those spirits, whatever did that to him, were just kind of like left him kind of just completely just wrecked.
Dude,
and it's like it's crazy to think about that. It's like because the world would look at Jim Carrey and say, this guy is like, obviously had some of the prettiest girlfriends. He's got all the money. He's got all the adulation. Everybody says nice things about him. And did he look like a happy guy to you in that clip? Did he look like somebody who's achieved all the things? And no, he looked like he been through the ringer.
Yeah. It's so sad. I mean, it's so sad, but it's so true. And like seeing that depression, seeing that sadness and that brokenness, like it's good to be there in that place because that's where the Lord meets you. It says, blessed are the brokenhearted, right? For they will see God. So, but when you're in acting, bro, it's a hard place to get to, and to some degree, you just disguise it with that fake facade, and that's what I see in him, and it's unfortunate. I pray for Jim Carrey. I hope he is not the satanic leader of the satanic church like they say he is. And I hope he's not. I hope he's just a normal dude who's suffering with, demonic oppression, and he just needs a prayer. That's all I gotta say.
Deliverance. Here, check this out. We'll do a couple more. Here's this is really interesting, Bryan. I think you probably saw this, but this is like a commercial for college football.
The black goo taking over. They're by the way, the special effects on that could use some help. That's all I would say.
You think so?
I think their special effects artist needs a little bit upgrade. I could do better than that, and I'm not even that level of special effects. But yeah, no, I mean, I see the black goo. I mean, they put that on everything. It's obviously a Venom promotion ad for that movie.
Yeah, so the new Venom movie just came out, and I think it's getting panned. It's like, it's not being well received, but yeah, it's really interesting that actually I just saw something interesting too. It was like, I think Megan Fox is she just announced that she was pregnant. I think she took these pictures in the black goo. I'll have to find it in a minute. But yeah, like Venom, I've talked about him on many podcasts, but like Venom is this alien and he's this black goo, and then he transforms a normal person into this super monster, basically. And like in the comic books, he was always a bad guy until at one point they decided, hey, what's good is bad and what's bad is good. And so now he's an anti-hero. But obviously, if you see the way that it's presented, even in that commercial, it's possession, right?
Yeah.
this football player wearing the white outfit, and then he turns black, and it's like he's all of a sudden he's a monster.
Yeah.
So like it's very clearly that it's like, yeah, this is norm. If the Ariana Grande thing was normalization of witchcraft and all this other stuff, well, this is more normalization of possession.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're putting into the football arena. It's like they're just blending in demonic possession and witchcraft into every part of the culture that we have today. They're trying to normalize everyone to this, and it's just another tactic of the normalization of Satanism being bred into our societal perspective. Yeah, oh, it's so cool. They've got black outfits now because they're like Venom outfits. Like what a joke.
Check this out. So this is,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this is Megan Fox, and this is her announcement of being pregnant, I guess.
Wow, that's her I'm pregnant announcement?
I don't know if it's her announcement, but
Dang.
obviously this is, it's obviously it has something to do with her being pregnant, and then she's in the black goo.
Yeah, that's disturbing, man.
We, I know Master Deadly and I did a podcast while breaking down, it was Doja Cat's video called Demons, and she's in a bathtub with the black goo surrounding her. It's so obvious. I think the black goo can mean a couple things, but I think very clearly it's demonic. The other thing was like some people talk about it having something to do with graphene and some kind of like almost a transhumanism type thing. But I guess you could say transhumanism doesn't necessarily mean, like a lot of us have made the connection, transhumanism is like organic versus, technology. But you could be transhuman and not in the way you think, right? Because you could be transhuman as in the way that you are partially possessed by a spirit, right? Maybe that's kind of what they're showing. But yeah, like, ew, you know what I mean? Like, why would you want to associate that with you being pregnant, right? Like, it sounds, makes you think like, oh, what's in there? What kind of demon is that in that in that belly?
Oh yeah, that's definitely disturbing. It definitely makes you think about that. Like, what's going on there? What is she giving birth to? What kind of wickedness is this? Oh man.
Yeah, no. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah, show me one more.
Okay, we got official NASA footage of the Apollo missions.
Oh yeah. That was great. You'll like that one.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Bro, come on. It's being held up by strings right there, just so you guys can clearly not.
Yeah, there's definitely wire.
Wires. It's wire.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just look at how he's suspended there. Like, what do you like?
Well, no, I mean it's kind of like all the other stuff. I mean, once you can see it, you're just like that. And this is the reason why people believe we went to the moon, is because there's videos of it. There's pictures of of outer space, and there's
videos
pictures
of
of satellites
falling down like that, though.
There's all these things, and obviously when you examine it, and you're just like, wow, why did I ever believe that? And I guess the thing is, like, I never had a reason to believe it wasn't real until like people started to present it to me in that kind of way. that like, oh, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean we didn't go to the moon? I thought that was a cool thing that we went. And then you start to unpack that stuff. I even like, it's funny. Somebody was sharing my old video about like, does anyone still believe we went to the moon? And so Buzz Aldrin is on Conan O'Brien, and he's like, I remember when we saw you that he's like,
He's like, no, you didn't.
No, yeah, no, you didn't. No, you didn't see it, because he's like, there wasn't anywhere taking the pictures. You heard,
Yeah.
You watch animation, and so I think what he was saying was that when they were first going to land, obviously the networks had all this stuff made up, like to show that, because nobody could just imagine, not like that it wasn't, people couldn't just listen to something and kind of see what's happening.
Yeah.
Or like in a picture in their head what's happening. They literally were running propaganda, because like, why would you ever do that? Right? Like, why would the news people ever do animations like that? But at the same time, I think they say like they landed on the moon in the daytime, right? So a lot of people think space is cold, but what we're told is the surface of the moon was like about 250 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm.
Did you know that?
No, but I would believe it because it's closer to the sun.
Well,
right?
I don't even know like all the reasons they say, but the point is, you can look that up. The moon is really hot in the daytime. It's probably really cold at night. And that being said, like, all right, if that's true, what kind of cameras did they have that could handle that kind of heat?
That. Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, so they maybe even tell you this at some point. They said, yeah, obviously that's recreations too, but we really went. Trust me, bro. We just couldn't feel. Yeah, the idea that it's like when you see pictures from outer space now, they say, oh, well, they're infrared, and then eventually we have to make them into graphics, because that's the only way you can take pictures like that. But what about in the 60s when you filmed, when you had actual film, right? Isn't it? Because it wasn't digital back then, right? It was actually like literally, it was rolls of film.
They were sensitive to heat. Yeah. And cold.
Yeah, you think that stuff would have survived at 250 degrees?
Yeah.
You think, I mean, like even those suits, it's like that would be really hot inside those suits, I bet.
Oh yeah, it would cook you for sure. And then like, I don't know how, I mean, like and obviously you float when you're in those suits though, because clearly those aren't strings holding you up when you trip that stop you from crashing down onto the ground. Like you just kind of bounce a little at your mid-waist line. Like, yeah, it's so ridiculous.
Well, it's kind of like too that you know, there's less gravity. It's not like there's zero, you know, this is what they say. There's not zero gravity on the moon, so there's less. But it's like, do none of the laws of physics even apply on the moon at all? Like, because what was happening there?
Yeah, what was totally happening? Like, 'cause even if there was less gravity, you would just fall slower, but you would still fall.
This actually goes right along with kind of this topic, and so this will be the perfect closer here.
Newsbenders from 1968. This wasn't made by a bunch of truthers. This is BBC. Who told you this?
You're going to make this happen.
No. We're going to make models much cheaper. And then we photograph the models.
Fake newsreels?
Fake newsreels. For the past 10 years, people have been looking at our fake newsreels and listening to our fake commentaries.
And they accept it for the truth. And you can do it. Stop 100 people in the street. How many of them have actually seen a missile or a satellite? They're just told they exist and they believe it.
Yeah, you're getting there. I knew you would. You didn't really believe there were all these things whizzing about up there, did you? Sputniks and rockets. Astronauts crossing their legs for 8 days.
How long has this been going on?
Since Hiroshima.
And the H-bomb, you mean, that doesn't work either?
Right. Dirty.
Very, very dirty.
What was your first reaction? Relief. Oh, yes. Yes, it has to be relief.
You say you can put out what pictures you like on television. Doesn't anybody try to stop you?
No, nobody wants to. 99.386% of the population wouldn't believe this conversation. And the rest are working for us. They're the top minds, the really responsible people. Scare an ostrich, buries its head in the sand. you scare a hedgehog, it rolls itself up into a ball. When a woman's frightened, she goes out and buys herself a hat.
You mean you scare us so that we'll buy more, so that money moves quicker, production moves up?
We don't say scare when we talk about human beings. We say threaten them emotionally. And there are all sorts of ways, not just the big ones like the hydrogen bomb. Overcrowd them a little with bad planning. Sell them too many motor cars. Anything to keep them a little bit removed from reality. Nowadays, people don't work for money. They work for the idea of money. They don't even love for love. They love for the idea of love. They only hate for the idea of hate. It took us 5 years to find a non-addictive D, gave them nice little hallucinations. They can talk like 3-year-olds. Throw flowers at policemen. Politicians are easy to control. The grocer mentality boys who like to be photographed getting in and out of Daimlers and Whitehall. They come right at the bottom of our organization. A few rungs up the ladder, there are the people in the top secret factories. Just those in a position to know they're making weapons that don't really work.
There must come a time when somebody wants to use one of those weapons. I mean, somebody is standing there with a finger on the button.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Nobody presses the button.
What do you think about that, Bryan?
Yeah, I've seen that little clip before, and it's pretty starkingly true, is what it seems like. It seems like they're just telling you to your face, straight up, what's really going on, and it's all a big act, and it's all designed to manipulate and control you.
How about that? The timing of that, though, 1968.
I know.
A year later, they landed on the moon.
I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I mean, like it's all a big act. I mean, like they're telling you what it is. You know, people don't see these things. I mean, like you're told right now. I bet half of the listeners think that your cell phone works off of satellites, right? I'm sure so many people are like, "Oh yeah, my cell phone works off of satellites."
Mm-hmm.
In fact, everybody thinks that. Like when you talk to them, no, your cell phone doesn't. Your cell phone doesn't work off satellites. Satellites don't give you your cell phone signal. It works off of these towers. That's why when you go in the mountains, your cell phone signal doesn't work.
Right.
Because it's not going up in outer space, bro. It's going from tower to tower to tower to tower to tower.
Right.
Like,
like the fact that the mountains were obscuring the signal would not work if they were way above the mountains.
Yeah.
But towers, radio signals, even what's interesting is a lot of people think that, like, the internet's coming through satellites and all this kind of stuff. Do you know that? I mean, it's crazy to think about
cables.
Yeah, there's
cables.
There's literally cables under the ocean.
Yeah,
that go all the way across the ocean. I mean, like that is really crazy that's done. I'm just kind of wondering now with the idea of like the hidden technology. I wonder how much of those cables were probably already pre-existing. Like, because it's almost like I almost can't even imagine that they were all done by people now. Because that's like, it seems like this is the only thing that they are really good at is tricking people, deceiving people, broadcasting, television, channeling. Oh, that's what this is. I mean, like that's what he said without saying it. This is the magic. And this is how people are spellbound is because they sold them a vision that they want to believe. And the alternative is too scary for them. But it's like they're scared, but it's a controlled scare. Like they know how to manipulate people. Like as I said, they were just manipulating people's emotions. They're not necessarily just trying to scare them because they're trying to kind of twist them around in different kinds of ways. But man, when you see it like that, I mean, I think a lot of people probably watching that, they instinctively know. Obviously, people listening and watching it from us, you guys know that that's the truth. But I mean, I think that probably a lot of people would watch that. And I think if they were being honest, they'd be like, what if that's real? And then, but when they're asking that question themselves, they already know that it is.
It's fascinating because even that bomb footage, like the Joe Rogan clip that that
was hilarious. When I first saw that, it was so funny.
Yeah, and like that dude that goes on Joe Rogan, he talks about like that the atomic bomb was a lie and it's a hoax because you see those footage of those houses being blown away. Well, if you pause it right at the last second before the house gets exploded, one of the clips changes and you'll see this toy model car behind the house. and you don't see it before one of the frames. So the whole clip, and you got to think
Yeah.
like if that was an atomic bomb, how come the film wasn't like irradiated
Right.
immediately or melted? Like the
Or
film was filming
what about
the
the
atomic
foot?
bomb.
What about the footage from inside the house?
Yeah. See how did that
it's kind of
stand?
one of those things where like, yeah, it's like a lot of these things where you're like, I actually I really like that clip with Joe Rogan because he's laughing because he's kind of like all of us where you're watching it, and you're just like, you felt like an idiot forever believing it when you're pointing out how obvious it's like, yeah. So where is this camera at that's taking this footage of this horrific event, and especially when it's inside the house? Yeah, and you can very clearly see when you're like, yeah, that's a dollhouse. And so the real question is, if they have real atomic bombs, and I'm not saying they don't because I don't really know.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why would they
think
show people this? I mean, I would say that the main reason you'd show people that is because to scare them. So they could have weapons like that are that destructive, but when you're showing people like that, and obviously we know about like the Red Scare and people like literally learning how to go under their desk when an atomic bomb's going to hit. Like obviously you see the destruction, like they supposedly do. Going under a desk, I don't know if that's going to save you.
Help you, yeah.
But yeah, like that's the kind of thing that even like they say like that. We're talking about we're told about Hiroshima and Nagasaki often, but even the mainstream history says that the firebombs were way worse than those. Like they firebombed Tokyo before they ever dropped those massive bombs, and so the destruction caused by those were way worse than those atomic bombs.
Yeah,
and that's if they're real.
Yeah, there's still no radiation in those areas. It's completely gone. It's like there's no radiation. And there was a dude that survived both, who's like 90 or something. He survived like both of the atomic bombs, and they filmed it when he was like 90. They like made a video of him, and he's like, yeah, he was in both areas in Hiroshima and Nagasaki when the bombs were dropped, and he survived both explosions. And you're like, how is this dude not irradiated? How's this guy not like dead from the dude? He was like 90 years old when they made the video clip of him or something, or like him talking about it. And it was just like, dude, like what? How are you going to survive if that was really what was going on? Maybe the information they're telling us is a lie. Like maybe.
Well, I guess when it comes down to it, it's like you do have to see these things. And I think this is what I try to tell people. And this is why I get called a science denier or like I'm stupid or something. I've seen enough of this stuff now where you cannot believe your own eyes when you're watching the TV. You cannot believe your own eyes and your ears when you're watching stuff on the internet. And I know Bryan and I talked about this on one of the early Decoding Babylons. We talked about Project Bluebeam. And people have this idea of what Project Bluebeam would look like. It would be this hologram in the sky. But most people aren't looking at the sky. They're looking at their phones. They're looking at their TVs. And so that's how you would really trick them is just like War of the Worlds back in the day. They're listening to the radio. The news is broadcasting that there's
totally a government propaganda thing.
There's an alien invasion happening, and people believe it because it sounds like the news people are talking about it. So in that same kind of way, that I'm not saying that necessarily that the atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima were not real. I don't know that they are. And people would say, oh, you're crazy for saying that. What I'm saying is like, when you see this, and it's like, you really do have to say that you have to trust, you put a lot of faith in the history books. You got to put a lot of faith in the news people. You got to put a lot of faith in the historians. You got to put a lot of faith in the United States military. and so I think that it's not necessarily saying that that's, well, I would say it's misplaced to put too much faith in them.
Yeah,
I would just always kind of leave yourself open to it, saying like that the more you research these kind of topics, the more you find out that some of these things you thought were facts, maybe are not necessarily facts. And would they manipulate people to control them in some kind of way in order to get them to buy hats and things like that? Yes, we know that they would, and they could, and they have.
I would say not necessarily that they were not real, but rather that they are not what they're telling you they were. You know what I mean? So like the theory is that they dropped a bunch of firebombs over Hiroshima, not a nuclear bomb. It was just like
Right,
multiple
right.
fire bombs all at once rather than a single nuclear bomb. And so that was the idea behind it. Like it was like the nuclear bomb was a made up concept to stem fear further and be like, yeah, we got these things called nukes, but we'll never press
And
the
all
button.
you do have to do is press a button.
One
and a
button
place
is
just
done.
no longer exists.
Done.
You know, that it's funny, guy, because you're right that we know that the United States military and all kinds of militaries around the world have very destructive things. So they don't need a nuclear bomb to destroy places. They can destroy places. There's no doubt about that. So but I do think maybe that was really what they were trying to get people to believe is that they even talk about. I mean, they say it all the time now. Oh, Trump's getting in there. Do you know he's going to have access to the red button that says "Don't push here unless you're really sure about it"? Because if you do that, all the nuclear weapons are going to go shoot across the world, and the world's going to end. And I think it is. It's like that. Be scared, guys. Be scared, because
keep a little bit of fear.
Yeah, well, be scared so you can always have something to worry about. It's like it's something a way to manipulate people in some kind of way.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you're afraid. Oh my gosh, it's so fearful. I just need to go buy something. Let's just pretend like this isn't happening.
Distract
myself.
myself.
Let's just distract. Let's just go buy some clothes. Let's go to a movie. Let's just do something to distract us.
Escape, right?
Yeah, escape, exactly. Rather than contemplate and think about your existence. That's
right.
what they want. They don't want you to think about your existence. It's the same reason they hide blood and gore on movies on YouTube. They don't want you to see people blood, and they don't want to see death or dying videos on YouTube. They don't want you to be exposed to things that are thought-provoking in your nature as an existence. Now, they want to hide the things of death from you because they don't want you to think about death. They want you to focus on what you need to buy next, what you want to do next.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same reason. It's the same exact reason. They've been doing it for a long, long time, and they continue to do it to this day. But hey, maybe Trump can fix some of that. That'd be great.
I'm sure people are going to love that. Maybe I would hope that he can. I'm not putting my faith in him either.
He can also make it way worse. So who knows? He can make
it way worse too. But no, guys. But yeah, that being said, you got any closing thoughts, Bryan?
Just be aware that there's a lot of wickedness in the world and our society, and our society is completely governed by something wicked, right, and manipulative, and they're trying to manipulate us always. So don't just think things are innocent. Things are innocent. They're not. There's some kind of wickedness underlying it, and just bring everything before the Lord and be like, God, is this something I should be doing? Pray about it.
Yeah, I would encourage people to trust, put your faith in no man, no matter who they are, including ourselves. Trust God alone. Obviously, let every word of God be true if every man was a liar. And so now when you see this kind of stuff and you say the science or the news or whatever conflicts with what the Bible says, is this not enough reason to just trust God? And obviously God knows your heart, and that if you're putting your faith in him, then no matter what the news is saying, you're going to be okay anyways. So I would encourage people just to do that. Always, that's the first thing we should be doing anyways. But faith in God alone, and obviously questioning man. Ask for receipts like we all do. That's the questions that they make us get called stupid at times, but I'm fine with that. Okay.
Yep.
I'm confident in who I am and what I believe.
Be a truth seeker, not a belief defender. That's
going back to the beginning.
Yep. Be a truth seeker, guys. Always.
Amen, brother. Well, anyways, guys, we appreciate you guys. Once again, you like, share, subscribe, all the things. Bryan's links are in the description. If you guys want to send us video requests, follow us both on X at JT Follows JC, at Demon Erasers on X. Appreciate you guys. Love you. God bless.
Later.